Let's get started with some breaking news coming in this afternoon, and the European Union has said that the future relationship deal has been agreed in principle with the United Kingdom, but the agreement is subject to leaders' endorsement, and which of course means Theresa May and her cabinet. Following the news, of course, the pound has jumped to its highest level since Dominic Raab resigned as the Brexit secretary a week ago. So in all of this, some good news now for the UK as the European Union. They're saying that the deal has been agreed upon in principle, and the future relationship deal has been agreed upon in principle with Britain, and it is now subject to the leaders' endorsement. In this, of course, it means both Prime Minister Theresa May, her cabinet, and of course the British Parliament, which needs to now pass this bill so that Brexit can now become a reality. Finally, there have been fiery exchanges in the UK Parliament over the course of the last 2 weeks or so. And of course, some high-profile resignations as well from Theresa May's cabinet, including, of course, the resignation of Dominic Raab as the Brexit secretary just a week ago. Mandy Clark is now joining us live from London for the very latest on this big breaking news coming in from London. And Mandy, well, some good news there. The European Union, they're saying that in principle, the agreement has been agreed upon.
Yes, and it's certainly good news for Theresa May. She has been trying and pushing it through. She had a pretty hectic last week where it looked like she might get ousted by her own party over this Brexit deal, but that coup failed to go through. So this would be very welcome news to Theresa May. But as you point out, it still has to pass Parliament. That was the rules when Brexit started, that Parliament would have the final say on any Brexit decision. She's probably regretting putting that stipulation in, because a lot of her MPs, Tory MPs, said they will rebel against it. The party, the DUP, that really supports her government, also said they're not going to vote for it. So she still has a very hard hurdle to pass that parliamentary test. But right now, it's a welcome news coming out of Brussels for Theresa May.
Yeah, welcome news coming in. And of course, we are already seeing how the British economy is reacting to it. We know, Mandy, that the pound has remarkably recovered from the initial, from last week, where it had gone down significantly after two high-profile exits from Theresa May's cabinet.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. The economy likes stability. So whether they like Brexit or not, that's a different story. They want to know there's a path going forward, there's a plan, and Britain is not going to crash out of the European Union. That would cause even more instability. Of course, Mark Carney is the Bank of England head of it, and he has said that he didn't approve of Brexit at the time. He thought it would be a bad deal for Britain. But any resolution, any way forward is, of course, welcome by the economists and the market. So we are seeing that bounce in the pound at the minute.
Yeah, and Mandy, of course, this means that in principle agreement means that we don't really know the details right now, but we know that this, of course, is a 585-page document covering citizens' rights, financial issues, and the Irish border. So it would mean that there is some sort of reconciliation from the two sides as far as the controversial Irish border issue is concerned.
Well, yes, it seems like they have that agreement in principle, but of course, they also have done the so-called backstop, where they haven't really hammered out the details of exactly how that Irish border is going to look. Will there be hard border checks, or would it be no border checks as it is currently now? So there's a backstop where they continue to be under EU rules until that has been decided. Now, that's the main reason why our cabinet really decided that they couldn't back it, because they felt like this would keep Britain tied to the EU in perpetuity, and there was no really end of that issue in sight. So that is still a sticking point. They've agreed in principle to finding a solution, but they haven't yet found the solution, and that's where Theresa May's headaches really exist in that nitty-gritty detail.
Yeah, the nitty-gritty detail, and as you were rightly pointing out, Mandy, the backstop arrangement is something that was discussed in Parliament, and there was much that the opposition had to say about that, as well as some leaders within Theresa May's party. So while she has sort of gone through the first hurdle and crossed it, there are many more hurdles to the final resolution.
Absolutely. This is the long haul for Theresa May. She's made it clear that she's not planning to step down. She has to deal with Brussels, find a solution that is palpable to the EU, but also she has to sell it to her cabinet, who really sold Brussels, many of those Brexiteers, on having their cake and eating it too. They're finding that's not really how it's going to work, and they're not happy about it. And then she has to convince the opposition to accept the deals that she's come. So she doesn't really have a lot of allies. It's going to be a very difficult road ahead for her to get everything passed, and that all has to happen before March 2019, because that is the date that Britain will divorce the EU.
Right, but Mandy, in some information just coming in, and this of course could be at variance with what we know, the draft deal suggests that the Brexit transition can be extended until the end of 2022 as well. So that may give Theresa May and her cabinet a lot more time.
It does. So the transition, they can extend it for a year. So even though, but what has to be decided by March is the terms of the exit. The details of how the trade will go after Brexit, that they're willing to extend. Now, her Brexiteer cabinet ministers, the really pro-Brexit ones, say they don't want a long transition period, that they're just extending the pain, extending the divorce. But many people feel that it is required because they have really difficult negotiations to go ahead, and they will need that extra time. So it's, even the extended transition period is controversial. There's no easy route ahead for Theresa May.
Right, Mandy Clark, thanks very much indeed for joining us with the latest there. So in the big breaking news coming in this afternoon, the European Union and the European Parliament now saying that in principle, in agreement, a deal has been agreed upon between the United Kingdom and the European Union. So a big step forward. Of course, many hurdles still remain for Theresa May.